So as I begin my time, I would first like to start by thanking my partner, who's been wonderful to work with, my opponents, without whom this debate wouldn't be possible, and my judge for judging this round and making this debate possible. To give you a brief roadmap of what I'm going to do in this speech, first I am going to go over our counterplan and our two contentions before going on to refuting my opponent's case. So our plan is, rather than investing in the XL pipeline, to propose a counterplan of using the funds that would have otherwise been used for the pipeline to fund nuclear energy research for a couple reasons. The first being the bipartisan support it would get in Congress because of the military implications of it that could be appreciated by Republicans, and the environmental benefits of it that could be appreciated by the Democrats. And the second being that of creating more STEM jobs, as will be required by this counterplan, which is something that we have a deficit of in the status quo. So now to move on to our first contention. Our first contention is that of environmental harm. So the Keystone XL pipeline is going to promote the use of oil instead of the use of renewable energy. And this is just a terrible idea for our society as a whole, because we are moving closer and closer to climate change. A climatologist named Katharine Hayhoe stated that we only have 10 years if we start taking action against climate change today to slow it to the point where we could actually do something about climate change. So we essentially are right at the breaking point, and we cannot kind of implement a system that encourages oil use because of all of the dangerous implications for our environment. Secondly, the parts used to make this pipeline are not going to be like daisies or flowers or like grass. Like, this is going to be actual, usually metal, that is going to have to be made in a factory. And the production of this pipeline alone, not only is the pipeline itself going to be screwing over our environment, but the production of these parts for the pipeline is going to be essentially leading to more CO2 emissions, which, when they get trapped up in the atmosphere, is going to lead to the climate change accelerating, therefore jump-starting and accelerating global warming. Also, another reason why global warming is bad, and this would be created by this plan, is that this is going to disrupt the entire food chain, because the temperatures are going to rise so much that plants are going to be killed off, which means that the animals that eat those plants also will die because of starvation, and the people that eat those animals will also die of starvation. So essentially, our impacts here are mass death. And so by voting yes on the Keystone pipeline, this is essentially a vote to end the long-term success of our environment. Now we're going to go on to our second contention, being that of... we're going to go on to our second contention, that being of maintenance costs. So whether this Keystone pipeline went through rural areas or more urban areas, it's going to be extremely costly to maintain, and this is money that we don't have for maintenance, and especially not when we have this really big impact of climate change that needs to be solved. And putting money towards maintenance costs is going to be something that's going to take away money from what we could do to help our environment, and as a result is going to make it so that we are defenseless against this imminent threat of climate change. Also, we'd like to state that maintenance would be extremely tricky as well, because of the fact that this Keystone pipeline is so long, and any break in the system could leak oil into the environment, and even extremely qualified people working along this pipeline, which is likely what we would not have for maintenance. Even with the most qualified people, there is still a high risk of a single-handed action against the pipeline destroying our entire environment. And so now we are going to move on to our opponent's case. So our opponent's first contention was that of getting oil from the Middle East, and essentially that if we are investing more money into if we are investing money into this pipeline, we can become more dependent with our oil sources. Therefore, ISIS wouldn't be getting the money that we'd be giving them without the pipeline, and that U.S. diplomacy would suffer as a result if the pipeline wasn't enacted. However, we would like to state that we are not going to solve terrorism simply by taking money away from ISIS, because truly violent people are going to find ways to kill and just mass murder despite not having very much money, as evidenced by all of the school shootings in the past, which have required just simply access to weapons, and access to a violent type personality, which is what leaders of ISIS already have. So this is a contention that should not flow through. And next, they also stated that terrorism is bad because it's going to lead to worse mental health, and people are less likely to get jobs and have families. However, the impacts of terrorism, not only are there non-terrorists who are not likely to get a job and have a family, but also we would like to state that these impacts can be solved with our counterplan, because if we're pioneering the use of nuclear energy, we don't have to be reliant on oil at all, and so therefore taking ourselves out of the equation. So this contention and this point should not be considered. Off of their second advantage that of the economy, that unemployment is at 5.5%, and that we can increase the STEM jobs in our society, therefore employing more young people. We'd like to state that an increase in STEM jobs would not be significant on this one. If anything, the only jobs that would occur from this are the jobs that would be created by employing more people in factories and young people with lower skills to maybe maintain this pipeline. However, this certainly would not create more STEM jobs than the negation's counterplan would create, and so this entire contention should be voided as well. They also stated that their plan is going to lift people out of poverty, and we would also like to state that this pipeline is not significant enough to increase people's livelihoods so much that they can get out of poverty, and so this should not be voided. And this should be voided as well. And so for the reasons that the pipeline is extremely detrimental to our environment and our future, and because of the fact that the maintenance costs are going to be so high that this is just something that our nation cannot afford to do, I strongly urge you to vote in favor of the negation.